I've been playing this game for a minute. The very first update I ever played of this game was Project M 2.6, and it really showed me how insane that a modded version of arguably the most broken Smash game can become one of the most interesting engines that I've honestly ever seen in a Smash mod. This game is like peanut butter and jelly of Smash games, putting the best of Melee and Brawl in one engine, creating a really silky smooth game. I don't know why, but this is a weird side of me that is really interested in pre-release things. Stuff that didn't make the final cut. Characters that might have got cut from these type of games, or things that were close to making it but simply didn't. I'm sure if you've been around the Smash community for a period of time, you might have remembered the names The Forbidden 7, these 7 cut characters that were left over in Brawl's code. Well, Project M has their own set of cut and unfinished characters. And yes, I know what you're thinking, who the cares about cut characters from a mod? I thought the same thing as a teenager, until Project M ceased development all the way back in 2015, leaving a lot of assets and characters to not get finished or fleshed out. Now obviously in 2022 we have things like Project Plus, where they added in a lot of cut mechanics back into PM and tried to create a spiritual successor to Project M, and rightfully so, they succeeded at that. But when Project M disbanded, lots of things got leaked on the internet. Random cut characters, cut costumes, concept art, all leaked on the internet on 4chan, and there really isn't a video talking about these things. However, I've done some digging, more than the average person probably has on this topic. I've dug through old archived Reddit posts, looked through old Smashboards posts. I've even lurked on Discords for info for this video specifically, because no one outwardly talks about the cut characters from this game, or mod, whatever you want to call it. If I call it a game, it's fine. This mod is so good it basically is its own game. Now before we begin, it's important to state the following. This is all unfinished work, meaning none of these characters are finished. Even characters that might look playable aren't actually near to being complete. The main thing Project M cared about was character quality over quantity, except for Project M 3.0, that update made Smash 4 look balanced. Just because there's lots of characters on this list doesn't mean that they were all considered. In fact, lots of characters were just tests of concepts or ideas. Some characters drastically had more work put into them than others, and according to a lot of actual PM devs, who I even interviewed one of them on my channel a while back, they had a testing bed where people could try out ideas and they could see if they could work in the game. Normally these ideas were started by 1 or 2 people, and then they were in charge of their own character. Now how far the character got in the quote-unquote testing bed depended on if other devs on the team wanted to help them, or they thought the idea was good enough to push forward to hypothetically a release. But because the PMDT disbanded, their ideas got spread to the internet like wildfire on places like 4chan, or I even bet some ideas haven't even surfaced to the internet to this day. PM had rules when it came to adding new characters. That meant no characters could be added if they were going to appear in Smash 4, and only include characters that were referenced in Brawl. So that means if they had a trophy or sticker, they were fair game. And here we are today talking about cut characters from one of the best mods of all time, according to Watch Mojo, not me. Like I said, 3.0 Mewtwo was really dumb. I don't like this game. Kidding, subscribe to my Patreon. I'm broke, please help me. Or maybe I'm not, I don't know, please. Patreon down below. If you know anything about cut characters, you've probably heard of the Forbidden 4. Project M's 4 unreleased characters that were leaked on the internet right after being disbanded. These characters were Knuckles, Lyn, Isaac, and Sammy. Each character varies in quality. Knuckles was the most finished out of all the fighters, and this is apparent because the character made his way into Project Plus as a brand new character. But initially in this build, he was in a much earlier state, and it was pretty obvious by the concept art that leaked that Knuckles was taking a lot of inspiration from Dudley, from Street Fighter, and even Tekken fighters. At this point when he was leaked, he was probably 80% complete if I had to guess. Knuckles was by far the most complete character out of any character on this list, which is why he was reworked and put into Project Plus. Lyn was the second most complete character, having, if I had to guess, maybe 60% of the character complete. Lyn was a fast-falling character with a bow and sword, and she has a lot of unique aspects to her character. Even though a lot of her moves were incomplete, the general idea seemed really interesting. Some of her moves had alternate attacks depending on if you were to tilt or tap the A button. And according to what I was able to gather on Lynn, she was in the middle of a design restructure. Apparently some of the devs didn't know whether to make Lynn into just simply a fast character or a character similar to Marth, where she would have to rely on spacing and tippers. Lynn's design and moveset was lifted from a Mugen mod of the character, where the voice and a lot of exact moves were taken from this mod. Lynn was definitely a fan favorite for a lot of people because it's actually a Fire Emblem character with a unique moveset, who would have thought. And also, this is one of the first Fire Emblem characters that was ever introduced in the West. Some other OGs might remember that Knuckles and Lynn were leaked through a playtester, literally just streaming them playing these characters. Shoutouts if you remember these days. You weren't really allowed to talk about these cut characters for a while, and if you knew about this stuff, you couldn't really say it. If you ever commented on the PM Reddit at the time saying you knew about Knuckles, your post could actually get removed, so it was a different time for sure. Isaac was the third most complete character, but calling him complete would be a lie. A lot of Isaac's moves can straight up crash the game, duh, because he's not complete. According to the developer behind Isaac,
my idea for Isaac was a character that was very, like, ground focused. He started out, his template was like Roy physics. Like, I actually straight up took all of Roy's
Yeah, he was a fast
like,
faller, I remember that, yeah.
And ported them to Isaac and like tweaked a couple of things. Like, it made him just like a little bit slower, I think, like run speed wise, because Roy's pretty quick. He's an Earth adept in the Golden Sun games. He definitely would have been like ground focused, but I didn't want to like really, you know, Little Mac wasn't a thing yet, but like I didn't want to give him sort of like the Little Mac treatment. I could see where, you know, a character that was exclusively ground based would go. And so I'm looking at this. Isaac's a semi-fast faller, has a weight of 103 and has poor aerial mobility. His run speed is fairly quick. And he had a...
Kind of like Little Mac, actually, but not too, you know. Wow.
And it's funny how much, like, sort of that idea that, like, Little Mac, Isaac would have been much more mellow.
His smash attacks were made to be the strongest part of his moveset and made to be similar to characters like Link. Some assets for Isaac leaked later on, like for example an updated model on what his sword was supposed to look like. Sammy from Advance Wars was also planned at some point in development. Although Sammy wasn't actually on the character select screen, the code for the character was found deep inside the leaked build. Sammy was essentially a semi-clone of Snake at this point in development, also being heavily inspired by Team Fortress 2 Soldier, having literally a rocket jump as her down smash, which is actually kind of cool, I'm not gonna lie. She was meant to have a rifle as her side B and was supposed to have a lot of Snake's unused moves that got replaced from Brawl, like the forward smash. She definitely was a less complete character out of all the Forbidden Four, and I've dug through some Discord messages and apparently there's rumors that Sammy was going to be abandoned even before the PMDT disbanded. So yeah, sorry Sammy fans, all two of you. Okay, this is the part of the video that gets juicy. I've had people comment on my videos in the past, and people have even DM'd me potential characters that might have been planned, but there was never any solid proof. So I found an archived Smash Bros Reddit post from 5 years ago that essentially dumped a lot of character models and animations made specifically for PM. I couldn't believe my eyes, honestly, that this stuff was legit, and it turns out many people in the comments backed up the origins of this leak, so here it is. Also, by the way, again, these characters were probably 10 to 20% complete at most. They are probably in the same tier as Sammy or even Isaac on level of completion, so don't get your hopes up. Skull Kid. Lots of test animation was created for this character. They were still deciding whether or not to actually consider the character or not, and Skull Kid was accidentally teased many times during Project M's announcement trailers where they would post the number 47 as a number that essentially meant nothing at the time, but people began speculating that number 47 was a reference to Melee's event number 47, which takes place literally on Skull Kid's mask. Many people assume that them hinting that they were going to add Skull Kid in the game, and they think that's why they were posting about number 47 a lot. However, the number turned out to not really mean anything in retrospect, and yes, I got this from a really lengthy Reddit post talking about what the number was supposed to mean. Apparently it was just a random number they chose to hype people up with, but because many people thought it was hinting at Skull Kid, they decided to consider the idea, and thus here's a character model for Skull Kid, and some really interesting animations. That's really as far as this character concept went, and it's as far as we know for this character. I don't know how he was supposed to play, maybe fast faller, or maybe he was going to be a floaty character, I really don't know, but it was in the early stages of the character. So yeah, press F for Skull Kid. Paper Mario. Going back to the Smash Bros Reddit post I mentioned earlier, Paper Mario was actually being considered for a moment development. Rumors are that they put more work into him compared to Sammy. According to what I could gather, Paper Mario was supposed to have a moveset where he was assisted by other ally characters from the Paper Mario series. I'm honestly kind of sad he didn't make it into the game. He kind of reminds me of Mr. Game & Watch, so I wouldn't have been surprised if he was maybe cloned from Game & Watch. Dark Samus. Dark Samus was leaked as well, and this was way before the character actually making it into Smash Ultimate. Dark Samus was supposed to be a fast-falling Samus, a speedy Samus, which is honestly a bit sad because could you imagine Samus's moveset but with Fox physics? That would be insane. Dixie Kong. Dixie Kong was planned for a moment, and I'm going to guess she was obviously a clone of Diddy Kong in some way. Fun fact, Dixie Kong was also planned for Brawl, so this is a funny way of history repeating itself. This is of course Dixie's model they created for PM. We don't know anything about her moveset. This is what her model was supposed to be. Next up are characters that were simply just ideas or concepts, but these ideas weren't really taken to any extreme lengths, or they were probably shot down. These are going to be a little bit more rapid fire and short. Some of these might also be just rumors because again, their testing bed was probably a lot of characters. It was probably just a vault of characters, I'm going to guess, so maybe a little bit more rumor territory, but this is from what I've researched. Black Shadow. I got this from the interview that I did with Shadic last year, where he brought up that because Ganondorf's moveset was getting different moves and animations, people thought they were going to want the original Melee Ganon moveset back, and they thought possibly throwing the moveset on Black Shadow would be a nice idea. However, it didn't get past the concept phase.
Oh wow, so there was an idea for Black Shadow.
Yeah, it didn't, I don't think it really got anywhere, like not even like a test build or anything, but there was definitely an idea of like, alright, well we can sort of unapologetically make Black Shadow a Ganon clone, or a Falcon clone, you know, that's basically Ganon. Right. And then we can just go balls to the wall with Ganon. We never ended up going with it.
Pichu. Pichu was teased a lot in a lot of PM promotional videos. He was considered briefly by a few members, but the idea never went anywhere and was shot down. Raichu. Shadic, the same guy behind Isaac, stated that he was working on a Raichu concept where essentially Raichu was going to be a heavy Ganon-esque version of Pikachu.
I personally wanted Raichu instead of Pichu. I was going to be on the Raichu train, which would have been weird, but I wanted a slower, heavier, more like committed version of Pikachu. Like I thought that would have been a super interesting concept.
That would have been a plot twist. Everyone wanted Pichu, but you're like hit him with the Raichu. I like that. That sounds cool though.
And so the idea of making him like faster in some ways, but also having like a little bit less like aerial mobility or something like that to sort of like one be a trade-off and two like flavor-wise.
Very interesting. I guess if you want to play as Raichu though, there is Beyond Melee, so there is that. Ridley and K.Rool. This one might be a little bit more rumor territory. It might also just be a deeper cut from their vault. But I've heard rumors that some members wanted Ridley and K.Rool in the game, and the reasons why these characters were probably not chosen was it wasn't really easy to pick from existing characters in the cast to clone from for these fighters because their bodies are pretty unique. Maybe Charizard or DDD could have worked, but again, these ideas didn't get far in development.